35,000 rupees per scooty, my bottom line is increasing, and what is this guy talking? Right? This is where we are today. We need our IT to be super agile to meet these business requirements. What do you think the CEO will do? He'll fire the CIO or fire the business guy or the marketing guy? What will he do? He will not be diplomatic on this one. Yeah, he'll tell the CIO, what are you guys doing? Which is why the CIO was, upset, and which is why we got summoned, and, we got to hear the brunt of all that, what happened. So then he said, how can you guys help us, be more agile? And I want to sort of move to the cloud, but my biggest problem with the cloud is that I have existing investments, and I can't just, disrupt them and just take everything and move to the cloud. And then it's a chicken and egg situation, because every time a new requirement comes, I buy a new server, and then I have to wait until the server lifespan expires before I take it to the cloud. So I will never get to the cloud at this stage. So then we started discussing, okay, what is hybrid cloud? So the concept of hybrid cloud is basically being able to use your existing investment and take it to the cloud. So essentially, and this is one experience that I told you which I personally had, but most often than not, everybody wants to leverage the cloud but don't know where to start. Is that a feeling that we get with you guys as well and your customers? Right? Where do we start? Can I just forget about everything that was in my DC and go to the cloud? Right? Now, I remember meeting another very interesting, very senior person in the IT industry in Mumbai, and he said, he made a very simple statement. He said, in the next 3 to 5 years, no enterprises will have their own infrastructure. I said that was too far-fetched to think about, maybe not 3 to 5, but in the next 10 years, I don't think anybody will really maintain their own on-premise environments and their own SQL servers and their own Windows machines and their own what have you. Do you agree? Yeah? Do you guys have a similar issue with, should I move to the cloud? Do I get permission to move to the cloud and so on and so forth? Yeah? Cool. So with that, that is the last slide that I had. But I do want to, before we get into scenarios, what I want to tell you is two things. Everything that I'm going to talk today is available on all the stuff that we're going to discuss today is available on azure.microsoft.com documentation. Okay, all the services that we discussed last night, the 37 services are available here. When you click on each one of these services, the reason I'm telling you this is because it just makes it easier for me to.
Whatever. So it's extended, please.
Okay. So like I was saying, azure.com, azure.microsoft.com, documentation, the link right on top of that, top there, and pricing. These are the two most important links when you think about cloud. All the services that you have out here are listed out here. Now, for example, we're going to talk about hybrid. So let's say we want to talk about, you want to know more about backup. So you go to backup, and am I connected to the internet? Please tell me I am. Yes. You get the entire overview of the services and what you can do with it here. And then to do this, you can, to explore the services, you can simply go to the tutorial and you get exactly the steps that you're going to have to do. So essentially, how to is all there on the website. So we're not going to go into details of that. The other thing I want to tell you is, somebody said yesterday, Azure is very easy. Somebody at the hack said, something he said, Azure is very easy, otherwise it would have been very complex or something like that. So actually it is. What we've done is, there are only 3 ways to get your stuff done. Okay? One is, get your stuff done on cloud. One is you use a Azure portal. It is completely wizard based. I would say about 60% of the services that we offer on Azure are available through the management portal today, either in the new portal or the old portal. So this is the new portal, portal.azure.com. You sign in with your live ID. You go create You get again the same list of services that you saw on the documentation side. You go to hybrid integration because we're going to select backup. You say backup, and he's going to tell you that look, we don't have backup on the new portal, so let's go to the old portal to do that. So we'll go to the old portal because not all services are available there. And let me see, where is backup on? Yeah, it's under recovery, right? So again, pretty much wizard driven. Quick create a backup vault. I already have one. I do not have too much credit, so I'm not going to create another. So when you create, you give the name and where you want to create. That backup vault gets created. Essentially, in Azure, when you're trying to bridge connections between two entities, you have only two things. One is the management portal on the Azure side, so all the configurations on the Fabric happens via the portal, and on your on-prem side, you will get a little agent most often than not. For example, for backup, you'll have a backup agent. For what else? Disaster recovery, you'll have a recovery service agent out there. So all of these agents you can download, you can install on your on-prem environment, and you're set. Okay, so you don't have to really do much plumbing work there. The second way to do this, there are many services that we do not offer via the portal today. The second way to do this is using PowerShell commands. Every service that is available in Azure today has a PowerShell commandlet to it. Simple scripts, there's a whole on MSDN, I think. Yeah, there's a TechNet. There's a whole set of documentation available for the PowerShell commands that you have. That's the second thing. And was there a third thing? Yeah, the third thing. So a lot of these solutions that we build for PaaS, you will obviously build using Visual Studio, right? So for Visual Studio and all of these services like say BizTalk services or Service Bus and all the associated PaaS services, you will generally find a NuGet package. So download the NuGet package, download the SDK, obviously you will have the Azure SDK, configure it, and you'll be able to connect to your cloud. So essentially 3 ways of doing it. Either you do it straight from the management portal, you do it using PowerShell commands, or you use this using Visual Studio. Now we'll shift over to our lovely board. Okay. Okay, so I need to switch. I totally do.
I've been made assistant.
She's my Red Bull.
That's a bad compliment, okay? I don't look like a Red Bull.
Where are your horns? Okay, so the caveat is, if this takes too much time, I'll shift back to the slides, okay? So I made these lovely slides and she said, you can't do this. This is a chalk talk. You have to use this lovely Lenovo board that is out here. So, alright. So essentially, how do you connect between what we're going to do is discuss how we're going to, not really how, what are the scenarios that you can use to connect between your Azure environment and your on-premise environment, okay? I'm going to tell you how, you're going to tell me scenarios in your world, alright? So I'm going to tell you scenarios per se. So let's draw a nice little cloud and a nice little on-premise data center.
Yeah.
Yeah, na? I should tell you a story about that. If we have time left, I'll tell you what happened in my first customer interaction in my day 3 of my job at Microsoft. It's like, where have I come? So anyway, remind me later to tell you that. So these are funny boxes, and you've got SQL here, you've got cloud services. Let me see if I can't write, okay. Alright, so different levels of connectivity, okay. Please read.
Is it English?
Good stuff. Alright. Yay. No, I actually practiced this with one of my colleagues last night. I drew and I wrote and I said, guess what it is? So I'm not a doctor by profession, just so you know. So topology, right? Topology is basically some products by default come with the ability to cloud enable themselves. Have you heard of Cassandra? Yeah? MongoDB DC cluster? Yeah? Azure HPC? Yeah? All of these are technologies which by default offer you the capability to connect multiple clouds inherently with each other in a single private network. Alright, you don't have to do any configuration. You deploy Cassandra DB, it will create a data center kind of a setup for you within whatever data centers you deploy. So you use public cloud, you use private cloud, private on-premise environments, private clouds, physical infrastructure, it will create. We will not talk about topology so much. Okay. The next one is okay, read. Awesome, cool. Do you have a doctor in your family?
Someone has a worse.
Obviously, somebody has a very bad handwriting, so they can get better.
Somebody is good at reading.
That's also true. That's very positive. Okay, so on the infrastructure side, do you guys know examples of how we can do it?
An application server on-premise, database server on cloud.
No, I'm saying that's not infrastructure, by the way. At infrastructure level, meaning physical network level, how will you connect? VPN? What else?
Lease line. Dedicated lease line. Dedicated lease line between two.
Awesome, yes, dedicated lease line between the two environments.
Express road.
Awesome.
Side to side.
Very nice, good.
Point to side.
Okay, so that takes care of my 2 slides, so I don't have to talk about that. I do want to ask you one question though. So you mentioned dedicated line, right? And somebody said VPN. When will you use either?
Security paramount.
Security दोनों में होता है.
Predictable value. Speed is the
Security is okay, fair enough. Alright, so that is on the infrastructure side. We'll go into little details about what you can do with Azure on that. The next one is interesting. It is yay! Cool. So data backup recovery, I think this is a pretty rudimentary need, right? Everybody has 3-year archival policy, cold data, warm data, hot data. What do you do with all of that data? Where do you store secondary DC tapes, disks, and what have you? Then we have another interesting way to do this. Damn, this is exciting. Okay. Yay! This is so much fun, no? And finally, actually no, wait, you know what? Okay, how do you rub this? Eraser. Yeah. Finally, my cloud also got erased. Okay. No, cloud getting erased is a disaster recovery scenario. Alright. So, okay, again I did that, but just assume I won't rub anymore because it will get rubbed. So, assume that you have, okay, over here, and you have this connectivity and this connectivity. Okay, you want to federate between the two, right? Read. You guys are rocking, man, seriously. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into details of each one of these. I will explain to you what you already know, which is how we do it in Azure, and then you guys tell me what kind of scenarios you envisage in these cases. In some cases we'll probably not get into as many details, but whatever. So from an infrastructure perspective, right, Azure offers you 2 options. One is the ability to create virtual networks. Okay, so in a virtual network scenario, you can create a virtual network between your DC to DC, between your on-prem to off-prem, you can use your own public cloud, which is not necessarily Azure, okay, to Azure as well. So it basically gives you the ability to connect a virtual network between 2 environments. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to tell my story.
Please do. This is exactly what a chalk talk is, so please do.
So that CIO came to me as an IT manager, okay? So we have been instructed that my post is in danger.
So we have to do something. Okay. So let's say we'll go with a
Thank God I didn't have to hear that.
we go with the hybrid situation. Okay. So we'll see as a Microsoft Azure is a solution or a testing purpose. We'll select them. Okay. So while the discussion, during that discussion, my network manager raised a query. Hey, but you are connecting to the Microsoft Azure. How about my connectivity? I'm the network in charge over here. So let's build a VPN. So the VPN should be created between our own private data center to the Azure. Okay. So connectivity is there. Now comes to the database administrator. See, my application and the database servers are hosted here. And I'm using the centralized database server that is always on. All the databases are hosted here. Now I want to move that database from that centralized database server to the Azure. And same applies to the application server also. So movement of those creating those VMs over there. So here, who will control those? I'll provide the VMs, okay, or you will directly.
Oh, you mean who in the sense between you and your IT manager or you and Azure?
Me and the application manager.
In your company?
I will give a direct access to the application manager to create VMs over there, or it will go via me as an IT manager, and I'll approve whether he should create the VM or Azure or not.
No, that is a huge. That's actually a fantastic question. It's a huge governance question, right? When you're in the world of hybrid clouds, how do you want to really define your governance policies? Today, every time you want a server, you go to your IT manager and say, please provision a server for me. You give him the specs, he negotiates, and whatever happens. In the world of Azure, I think it is really something that the CIO has to define as to how much power I want to give my IT people. So you might actually, let's say, in an application manager scenario, you might give the application manager the ability to create PaaS services. You may not want to give the ability to create VMs and do whatever you want with it. Because remember, everything in the cloud is consumption based. So you're paying for everything that you create. It's not like a capital expenditure thing that, you pay a lot of money one time and then you forget about it. Although that money is not getting utilized to its full potential, here you're paying pay as you go, right? Everything that you use, you're paying for. So there are certain things you might want to control, certain things you might not want to control. Why don't I ask these questions to the IT managers? What do you guys think?
What is the best practice from Microsoft?
For us, from Microsoft perspective, we have MSIT and IT controls everything. I don't think they sort of give access to anybody to play around with the cloud at all. They do not. But I do know that one of the banks that we are working with, it is very tightly controlled, and obviously so, right? In the banking in the scenario that I'm talking, first of all, they're only doing a POC, so they can afford this luxury right now. They have a dedicated set of people to just manage their clouds. They're experimenting with us. They're experimenting with AWS, and basically they have a set of people that manage creation of all the components on the cloud. Not a scale model, they know that, but this is since it's a POC. But many of you guys here are sort of IT managers. So what do you guys think? What do you think is the right thing to do? It should be with the IT manager.
It should be with that. Because finance budget, he has to show it to directors, CIO and other.
But then how? But then the question is really: Are you enabling your users? Or the throttle is actually killing your agility?
Actually, what we should do is basically we can allocate some budget probably with Azure, let's say Azure, and then IT manager can allocate that. Within that, dev people can play around. And when there is a threshold comes, when we are exceeding the limit, then IT managers should step in. Because why, if tester want a VM just for 2 hours for testing his performance testing, he will kick in 10 VM he can create with the help of scripts. I don't want him to go and create the 1 VM.
Okay.
Push his software, do the performance testing, kill the VMs. By doing that, we will enable our developers far more efficient way to do the coding testing.
Agree. You put the onus onto them, they'll be more efficient about using the cloud.
That if it start exceeding that budget, then IT manager has to step in. Okay, how you guys are using. So we can ask the dev manager question: how guys you are using the VM structure, because if you are not able to manage within this budget.
So I'll tell you what happens at our end, right? We have like a Azure account that is created for all the technical people in Microsoft. All the technical people get one Azure subscription for Microsoft. So we get two actually. One is an MSDN subscription and one is a mother of all subscription that we can even run Hadoop if you want to, like, you know, big, really big data. But there are policies defined. So for example, if you violate that policy, that instance your account will be disabled. And then you have to go and tell, you know, give a 1,000 explanation to why you should continue to do that. See, the idea here is that you don't want to control completely and you want to create power users. Now how you create power users, that's the question. With Azure, you can have multiple subscriptions associated with one account. So what you're proposing is something we can do very easily, right? You create multiple subscriptions, put in a certain amount of money in each of those subscriptions and say, this is what you get for this period, and you manage your resources within that. And of course that can be increased, decreased, you know, you can add more funds to it and so on and so forth as you go.
I think resource group is also one of the ways to do it, right? You create a resource group and then you can have access to that resource group. So if it's a specific application, you maybe give the application owner full access and others will be read-only access just to see what the components are. So it's a new component in the new preview portal, right? So it's one of the ways to do it.
That is definitely one of the ways to do this, but I think this is a discussion before you even get to the application level. You know, where do I have the right to even create a cloud service? Do I have the right to even create a VM? Do I have the right, or should I go to my IT manager and ask for permission? So how are you basically creating power users at all? Have you guys worked on SharePoint ever?
Yeah.
This is a classic case with SharePoint, isn't it? You have like bazillion site templates out there. Everybody wants to create a site template. Everybody wants to create a workflow. There's no governance policy. At the end of a year, the IT manager is sitting with his head saying, oh my god, what do I do with all these things that are mushrooming all over the place? So yes, you know, before you even start thinking about hybrid, you have to define a policy as to how do you get there. Okay?
Given that this is a paradigm shift in the way we are doing IT, I think culturally the IT manager will also have to become very agile.
Oh yeah, totally, absolutely. Agility is absolutely the key. You know, we keep discussing this. In fact, we've been hammered about this all the time, right? If we do not change how we think today, we will never succeed. If we keep thinking like, no, but हम लोग तो ऐसे करते थे, it's not going to work in the new world, right? It's as simple as that. I used to work for Wipro before I joined, Microsoft about 7 years ago. We had a very simple policy. You don't bring in your own laptops. You cannot bring in your own machines. If the company gives you a laptop, they will block your USB port. They will block every damn thing that is possible on your device. About 2 years later, I saw people go into office with their own machine. And I was like, really? Yeah, but when you go into the machine, you have to go to the IT manager and he'll block all your ports. Okay, but that's your device. Yeah, doesn't matter. If you're connecting to whatever. About a year later, they said, okay, fine, we won't block it, but if you connect to Wipro Wi-Fi, we'll block everything. You know? Now they're at a stage where you can bring in whatever you want, do whatever you want, except if you're in the ODC. Anybody from Wipro here? Do you agree with me? Except if you're in the ODC, you can do whatever you want in your environment.
Everything is monitored.
Yeah.
Through a tool, everything is monitored.
Absolutely.
And anything you do is kind of reported.
Absolutely. That happens everywhere. That happens in our environment also.
When the companies, they keep the tight, there are also other things are monitored.
Company keep?
Even if the companies are having the tight control, we are first.
Yes.
That is also monitoring.
Yeah. Monitoring happens everywhere. Even in our monitoring definitely happens. So we don't have any control policies on what we. Yeah. In Microsoft, there are no controls on what we do, what sites we visit, what browsers we use. For example, half the people use Chrome in their org, and so on and so forth. So there's no controls of any kind. Everything is open. Having said that, everything is monitored. Everything is logged. So you can't do funny business, basically. Yeah.
That's something what somebody spoke about the paradigm shift in how you think. That's very, very essential because when I come from an IT background, right? So as IT people, you are very control free because you have been controlling things all your life. It's a good thing because you're not doing for yourself, you're doing for the business. At the same point of time, it's really, really rapidly changing time. If you do not change, I don't want to use that word, but yeah, you might make yourself redundant. that's where it is. So there's a fine line how much I control and how much I give access to. There are some good suggestions, but absolutely needed to let go. I think that's the right word.
Okay, so going back to our Azure VNet discussions, right? So you can create a virtual network. Well, no, this is interesting, right? I just looked at the time and I got a little scared because we got a bunch of things to cover. So, couple of things to remember though. From an Azure perspective, today you can create only one VNet between your within a particular subscription, and there's also something else that you have to worry about, which is basically you can within on-prem and off-prem you can have multiple VNets.
Yes, recently we
Okay, see the rate of changes also happens so fast that honestly we can't keep up with it. But anyway, so you can have multiple. The other thing you have to remember is the connectivity is happening via your IP protocol, right? So there will be a latency. So while it is an extended environment of your own, on-premise environment, there will be a certain amount of latency available there. The second option that we offer from an Azure perspective is what somebody mentioned as ExpressRoute, right? Until very recently, ExpressRoute was available only in the US. It wasn't available anywhere else in the world. But we've tied up with Tata Communications recently to offer ExpressRoute also in India when the India DC launches. So who wants to tell me what is ExpressRoute?
Dedicated bandwidth to on-premise to Azure.
Yes, but how?
Point-to-point predictable.
How?
With the least latency connection through MPLS optical fiber.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's not optical fibers, but very close to that.
Point-to-point connectivity.
Yeah, but how?
We need connecting the data hub to
Okay. Yes. No, yaar. Satellite is too much. Yes.
So you basically have hubs in specific locations and all the networks connect to that hub and from there you take it to Azure.
Awesome.
So you're
Yes.
reducing the number of hops.
So basically, this is like in 2000, in basically 2001, there used to be a concept of a dedicated leased line that came out of BSNL into your office. Yeah, something like that. So basically, you take an on-prem environment, you create a dedicated network cable that is laid between your environment and your Azure data center, and you're good. Extremely high speed, completely yours. I think we offer 10 GB if it's via network service providers, and if it's via, I don't think we have any exchange providers. Do we have any exchange providers in India? We don't. So if you have exchange providers, it's a slightly higher bandwidth that we offer. So ExpressRoute. We're going to get into preview very soon for the India DC. So there are customers that are working with us right now to deploy ExpressRoute. Obviously the benefits are tremendous, right? So what are the pitfalls?
Cost.
Single point of view.
Yeah, but yeah, somebody cuts the cable, yes. Yeah. What else? That is a very interesting concept. That is something you can never control, right? You can never say this data is too much or this data is too little. In the world that we live in, everything is digital. Seriously, I got this fellow last week in Seattle. I mean, it tracks how much I sleep and all that also. It's kind of it's good. Yeah, and the problem is we don't know when it starts intruding, So for example, my Fitbit dashboard says last night I slept 4 hours, the night before we slept 5 hours. I'm like, okay, this is interesting, but imagine getting that data out to somebody else, that would be a disaster. But sleep that theek hai, but beyond that, what's that?
In that ExpressRoute, if we have purchased it, okay, we are paying for that, and we are not utilizing all the bandwidth. Then
so there are two costs basically, bandwidth cost and the I was telling you what is not good with Express. Digression is not good. Bring people back to this thing, right? So yes, the what do you say? The problem with ExpressRoute today is that we don't offer all of our PaaS services using ExpressRoute. That'll get fixed. The reason I'm telling you this is because you guys belong to some organizations with whom we are trialing out ExpressRoute. So you'll get very excited saying, yay, we have connectivity to Azure, do whatever we want. won't happen. Okay, there are certain PaaS services that we do not offer today. We'll offer it as we sort of build the capability into the HD Insights we don't offer, Hadoop clusters we don't offer, media services we don't offer, CDN we don't offer, anything that is very yeah.
And one more question about ExpressRoute is right now you're working only with Tata. So would that be a kind of a negative if we don't?
That question is for Karan Bajwa. I don't know who else he plans to sort of yes.
Yammer is again 100%.
Yes.
Is it available through ExpressRoute on
Unrelated, absolutely unrelated. Yammer is either an Office 365 product or you deploy it on-prem wherever you want. So, doesn't matter. Azure doesn't come into picture at all there.
What about the media services?
Okay, can you manage that for me, please? Alright, then we'll talk about disaster recovery for a bit, okay? So we have various ways in which you can do DR scenarios today, right? So everybody knows what the difference between DR and backup? Yes? Okay. So disaster recovery scenarios, we enable the ability to create like a site recovery or what have you, using what we call as the Azure Site Recovery service. Use that? Know that? Yeah? Know about that? Oh, fantastic. So did we discuss scenarios on that?
Yeah.
Oh, good. So we'll ignore that. Very nice.
The advantage of using Azure is to bring down the cost. When we talk about hybrid, basically we are having two data centers. Other is the on-premise. So probably for the new systems we might be reducing a bit of the cost, but we are not actually getting rid of the existing infrastructure to basically look at the TCO, or probably bringing down the TCO, as well as we are investing in a lot of ExpressRoute and other things which are required. So how do we justify going for hybrid versus?
Interesting question. I had some stuff to discuss, but she said, what the hell, I don't want to talk about this on this slide. So when you think about hybrid cloud, right, there are three core things that we have to keep in mind, three tenets that we keep in mind. One is the first one that I discussed, right? Agile IT. You have to figure out, you need to figure out how do you make your IT teams really available for the business. Second, you have to think about how you're going to modernize your platforms. Today we are dealing with organizations that have built systems in like 98, 95s, some even 83s, which we have, we don't even know what to do with those systems. Today, you will not believe this, but today there are COBOL-based systems available. So modernization, that's a very, very important thing. When you move to the cloud, you're always going to be doing new things. You're always going to upkeep your system. And second is transformation, right? So transformation basically means that this is how I had architected. Okay, let me see if I can think of an example. Okay, I'll think of it as we talk. So this is how I had architected my solution in 2004. And the reason I'd done it like that in 2004 because that was a technology that was available to me at that point in time, right? It's different from modernizing. It's absolutely different from modernizing. Modernizing is basically using today's technology and dumping your previous whatever you've done. But can I redo what this core business functionality that I sort of created in 2004? Can I redo it with today's technology in 2015? So that transformation exercise itself is a big deal. So when you consider cloud, your TCO should also include all of these elements, right? In the beginning, you will, if you sit and do a TCO analysis, we just did it for, again, one of the banks in Mumbai, we did this, you will probably not find an immediate benefit. But look at that over 3 years. Look at how many servers you're not going to buy over the next 3 years. Look at how many servers you're going to just need to provision on the cloud over the next 3 years. That's where your TCO will come from.
Is it just the cost, or is it the fact that you need to manage a lot less, take care of a lot less peripheral infrastructure like power, cooling, and all?
That is also cost.
That is also cost, right? At the end of the day, that's financial management, really. But also there are two elements there. Very important to understand. Just because you move to the cloud doesn't mean your cost of management service is going to go down completely. If you're using infrastructure as a service, you are doing all the gadha work yourself even today, right? If you're using PaaS as a service, yes, a lot of management in overheads will come down. So I don't think we should look at it as saying, okay, today I pay 100 rupees, tomorrow I pay 0 rupees. That will never happen, right? Even in the horizon of where the industry leader that I told you said, 3 to 5 years there won't be any infrastructure, there will always be a cost to the company.
On similar to on that note, basically, when we do the cost justification, whether in terms of money or in terms of time or the people, everything is considered. What are the factors we should really focus, like or how should we calculate the cost saving that will actually happen when we go for hybrid with existing structure, but if we want to extend our infrastructure, we will go to Azure. So what are the things you think you suggest rather probably to us that these are the parameters you should basically definitely look and calculate the pricing on that and see whether it's fitting on your business or not.
So I tell you what, we just did from PwC here. They have a fantastic TCO calculator. Maybe we should have got somebody from there to explain. So we did this exercise, like I said, with a bank, right? I'll give you a very simplistic scenario, right? Every IT manager basically knows at what capacity he is running. Okay? Most often than not, he's running at 40%, 60%, between 40 to 60% of his capacity. That means 40 to 60% of your capacity is wasted, right? That is your immediate, cost saving, right? This is what you have to consider. In the world of cloud, yeah. That is one thing. And in the world of cloud, you will have, okay, let me explain this in a different way, right? Now, when we think about, I tweeted yesterday about stop thinking about PaaS, SaaS and IaaS, right? But think about it like that. Today, what we do in the on-premise world is everything is infrastructure as a service, right? Forget the fact that you're running at 40 to 60% capacity. Think of how much time your IT manager spends in backup, because you have to take backup, right? You have to have a DR scenario. You can't live without that. You have to move it to a tape. You have to move it to another DC. You have to create a DR scenario, which is basically one DC is here, one DC is maybe in some completely different location. You have to create those scenarios. How much of his time and energy is going into doing that? How much of his time and energy is going into also ensuring that your DR scenarios are such that your emergency response times are very, very minimal? How much data loss you're going to go through? All of that also contributes to your TCO. This is also information that every IT manager will have on his dashboard. I'm spending, I don't know, X amount of my day job in trying to create DR scenarios and blah. Now, when you start thinking of the cloud, right? And again, this is not about hybrid cloud at all. When you start thinking of the cloud, you say, if I go to the infrastructure side of the story, this whole activity will come down by, 30%. Because you're still going to patch yourself, you're still going to apply upgrades by yourself, you're still going to maintain, like we were discussing, failover by yourself. All of that you're going to have to do. Move that to a PaaS service wherever possible. Everywhere it won't be possible. Move that to a PaaS service. This will come down by 80%. Because the cloud is doing everything for you. You are just basically creating solutions and pumping your core business logic into it. Yes, that is the application. Not just application. Even look at machine learning as a service. All the way the basic algorithms are defined. Your data is defined. You're just creating a what is the thing called?
Experiments.
Dashboard. Sorry, not even dashboard. Basically the drawing board where you just connecting workflow. That's the word that I'm looking for. Like I'm thinking of BizTalk right in front of me. You know how BizTalk you create drag and drop and you create connectors and adapters? That's what you're going to do. How much of your energy is coming, or rather time is coming down in creating data warehouses and maintaining those cubes and maintaining those dimensions and creating backups of those and ensuring the replication happens of your data and all of that business, right? Making it real time. So all of this also goes into understanding what are those sparks that you need to consider to bring down your cloud.
Along with money and time complexity also get reduced to some extent.
Yes. And I have only 9 minutes left, so let me just. Yes.
So can I ask?
Yeah, go on.
Suppose one has AD on premise and they want to go for Office 365 plus single sign-on, so they don't want to deploy servers on premise. They want to deploy it on Azure.
They have Active Directory on premise. And they want to use Office 365. I don't think we have AD Federation there, no?
It's there. It's there. You don't need much.
On-premise Active Directory to Office
Yes,
365.
single sign-on is doable. There are enough documentation there. You can move to the next one if you have anything important.
No, I mean, there was something else.
Single sign-on, like your sign to your computer.
The same machine, yeah.
Access,
Yes.
No, but the real question is, do you have Office 365 AD federated with your on-premise AD?
You can do that. There's something called as directory synchronization. Or ADFS, you can have ADFS is there.
Okay, so I don't know about Office 365, but if you were to do exactly this on Azure, you could do that. You could have an Active Directory, Azure Active Directory on the cloud, on Azure. And
They are not on premise. They just want to deploy all the servers on cloud.
then it's even more simple. Then it's extremely straightforward.
Same sign-on if you
What
provide.
about VPN
Streams, you
connectivity?
put the same password.
How clients
You
will
put
connect
ADFS,
to
it
their...
will create.
One second, let me cross tab. What's that?
What about VPN connectivity? Means how the connectivity will...
No, see, VPN is infrastructure level. Now we are going beyond that, right? Once a connectivity is established between two locations, irrespective of whether it's a VPN, private, dedicated, over IP, HTTP, whatever. Once a connectivity is established, your Active Directory can be federated. I know for a fact, know for a fact, Azure Active Directory will be federated with your on-prem Active Directory. You can do that. Then you can authenticate very easily. This is a classic scenario for mobile applications. So mobile applications connect into, let's say, a mobile service on the cloud where you write all of your core logic, the mobile application data, you put in the SQL Azure SQL database on the cloud on Azure. You use Active Directory on the cloud to authenticate that data because that is federated with his on-prem scenario, and you build those kind of use
The
cases.
specific scenario that he's talking about, on-prem AD and O365, that's perfectly possible.
That's perfectly possible. Okay. So I don't know much about Office 365, so no comments on that. Okay. This is.
Let's say we're talking about hybrid, right? So, I got one question in my mind. I have a on-site, on-premise, and I have an Azure account. Can I have the Azure account or the on-premise account as a DR site?
So hang on, you have an Azure account and you have an on-prem account. Absolutely, that is exactly what ASR does for you. That is exactly what Azure Site Recovery does for you.
What are the basic needs that I have?
You should have attended this session previous to this. No, I mean, I could explain it, but most of these people have attended the previous session, so we can talk outside later. I want to spend a couple of minutes, which are only 6 minutes now, to talk about BizTalk services and service bus relays. You guys use that? Yeah? Scenarios, queues, topics, subscriptions, relays. Okay, so basically there are two components of hybrid integration that we call mention, or the three components of hybrid integration that we mention, which is service bus, BizTalk services, and a component of BizTalk services called hybrid connectors. So let me start with BizTalk services. Have you guys worked with BizTalk server? No? EAI tools? Yes? Okay, let me sort of just give you a very quick brief of what BizTalk does and what EAI is, so that it kind of helps you understand better. So typically, right, think of a scenario where you have mergers and acquisitions happen all the time, right? Many companies acquire each other, and when they do, the ITs are also acquired by default. So you have somebody who's sort of built their entire application on Java. There's somebody who's built an entire application on, let's say, LAMP stack. Somebody who's on WAMP stack. Somebody on Windows stack, and so on and so forth. Or somebody's on mainframes and so on and so forth, right? Now, BizTalk server is basically our enterprise integration tool. It essentially does a couple of things. One is transformation of information. I'm just making it as simple as possible since you haven't worked with BizTalk before. Transformation of information. So understanding what is the data that is coming in from system 1, processing that data such that system 2 understands. Okay? It is also possible that when system 1 is sending the data, think of a shopping cart example. When the store, let's say Shoppers Stop, is sending a basket data. Basket means everything that a person has bought in one shopping experience, right? When a basket data is being sent, there's a laundry list of things. Every item, uska cost, discount, everything is put together. That goes to the BizTalk tool. On the other side, I probably have a shirt category manager who only wants to know what are the shirts that people are buying, right? So what will happen, all the baskets will come inside. BizTalk will say, okay, this guy only is interested in this particular category, so they will filter, BizTalk will filter. You create a business rules engine where BizTalk will filter that particular message and send only shirts aggregated information to the person who wants this, right? So this is the entire EAI process. In the cloud, so you can do BizTalk services, BizTalk in the cloud in two ways. One is you use BizTalk services, which is basically BizTalk as a service. Alright? Exactly the same process. The only thing we do not offer is the ability to create workflows. So BizTalk will let you, create workflows in the sense that, okay, this message comes, then after this message goes to this person, you also have to wait for another message coming in from another person and send that message to a third person and so on and so forth. There's a lot of interesting workflow scenarios that you can build with BizTalk. BizTalk services does not give you that capability today. But on the messaging, when we discuss messaging and services, this is a fantastic way of integrating two systems. Let's say you've created a cloud, in my first example, that guy created a website on the cloud, he created everything in an Excel sheet, he could have used, a cloud database for that. Now his objective is to take those orders and put it into the on-prem ordering system that they have, whatever SAP, ERP and so on and so forth. So the best way for him to do that is using BizTalk services to relay that message across, all of those orders across. What is required on either side? Obviously, like I said, you need a BizTalk services agent on this side, you need a BizTalk service endpoint on the cloud, and those two can talk to each other. In BizTalk services, and this is application to application, business logic to business logic interaction. With the new world that we live in, you also have the ability to create mobile applications and websites on the fly, right? So BizTalk services offers something called the hybrid connector. Hybrid connector is very simple. Think of a two-tiered application. Let's say on my PC, I have created a website which connects to a MySQL database. So what do you need for that? You need a connection string, correct? And connection string, because it is on my PC, I would have said MySQL, my MySQL PC on my machine. I'm not using IP address for this, correct? I'm not using any HTTP URI to connect to the database because it's on my machine. Then I say, okay, fine, I want to make this application available to the whole world. So what do? I will take the website, deploy it on the cloud. The minute I deploy it on the cloud, the website will stop working because the database is still on my machine. So one way is obviously to put the database also there, but we're talking of hybrid. So I don't want to give my data to anybody. I want my data to sit on my machine. So what do? I create a hybrid connector, and hybrid connector is basically a dedicated tunnel, point to point, not to point in the VPN sense, but application to application. That it creates an endpoint URI. And the only thing I have to do now is the endpoint URI points to my database because I've installed a hybrid agent or connection manager on my PC, and now I just have to use the URI and connect it through. So I've not changed code on my machine, I've not changed code on the cloud except for deploying it, and still my application works. Right? So this is the third piece. The second piece is service bus relays. Service buses per se. So BizTalk services is something that you will use in an enterprise integration scenarios. Taking orders, sending it to SAP, taking orders, sending it to CRM systems, customer interactions, and so on and so forth. So big enterprise applications, you will use BizTalk services. 22 seconds left. Just one second. Let me just finish this thing, then we can go out and talk, right? So in the service bus, scenarios, sometimes there are very simple things that you want to do, right? You just want to push a message from one system to another, and then you don't want to worry about the system one does not need to worry about whether the guy got the message, did not get the message, or whatever, right? So an asynchronous messaging, which is pure push, does not come back and say I succeeded, failed, nothing. Then you have a second scenario where you say the same message needs to go to multiple systems. Okay, so you have what we call as queues and subscriptions, topics and subscriptions. So again, a feature of service bus, you can say that, alright, for this particular message, that is sender, I want the message as it is. No changes to the message, no aggregation, no interpretation of the data, nothing. However the message comes, flat file, XML, that messages will go to either one or multiple. I will not care about, service bus will not care about whether the message got delivered, the message got failed. It will not throw a fail error message, nothing. It will say bring, send. So in non-critical message scenarios, is something you can use. Is Event Hub or notifications is a great example, right? You want to push many notifications, you don't care if somebody gets a notification or not, you use something like that. Then the third level is what we call as the service bus relay. So service bus relay is a little, sophisticated version of service bus. So in this case, a message will come, service bus relay will relay it to the various subscribers, and it will also tell the sender back that I've done my job. Okay? But it will not interpret the message, it will not transform the message, it will not do any aggregation, it will not do any business workflows for you. If it fails, it will not resend anything. If it fails, it will send an error back to the guy who sent it saying message failed. So you have to do a lot of plumbing work on your end. Unlike BizTalk services, where if the message fails, it will be resent. If the message has already been sent, it will be deduplicated and not resent. So BizTalk is an intelligent messaging system as compared to service bus. Okay, so service bus, queues, topics, subscriptions, and service bus relay are again 4 integration mechanisms that you can use from a hybrid cloud perspective, application to application. We're not talking about infrastructure here at all. This goes over HTTP and so on and so forth. Okay.
Similar to the BizTalk one, we also have products from IBM. Now, can that also work in a similar scenario? Like, would Azure allow to use that?
So I know the product that you're talking about, but I don't. That is possible if we deploy that on an infrastructure as a service, not as a PaaS. When I talked about BizTalk services and service bus, it is completely platform as a service. You don't have to worry about plumbing functionality at all. I think what is that product called? Worklight, WebSphere, right? Deployed on Windows Server, put that in infrastructure as a service, you're set. But this is IaaS, not PaaS. Okay? Cool. Yes?
What will be the front end to do the VMs movement from the private to the public and public to the, just like a Cisco as a tool.
What is the front end to move, meaning?
Didn't get your question.
Would you say, if you see the OpenStack, okay, OpenStack can deploy a private cloud over here until it connects to the Amazon GCP. How about that?
So you can do that exact thing in Microsoft as well. So you set up a private cloud using, let's say, Hyper-V System Center.
Okay.
There are tools interfaces where you could see your private cloud as well as your public cloud subscription, which is Azure. So when you are doing any deployment, let's say of websites, there's a very neat tool called as Windows Azure Pack, WAP, which you can put on-prem and that will connect. That will give you a cloud-like experience on your private cloud. If you want to connect these two, like in a busting kind of scenario, I would really want to have everything on premises. But when there is a sudden need of infrastructure, I will rather push these VMs on the cloud. Possible.
See, understand one thing, right? There are a whole bunch of tooling available today for on-prem management, right? You have System Center, you have Data Protection Manager, which takes care of your SQL file exchange, etc. You have SQL Server itself, which gives you backup and recovery agents and so on and so forth. What we've done very consciously is included the ability to do what you do on-prem to also on cloud. So for example, take SQL as an example. SQL Server 2014, you have the managed backups. Managed backups has the ability to back up to your DC, to somebody else's DC. It also has an option to back up to Azure, right? In DPM, when you create a backup agent using the backup vault you must have seen it in the last session. When you create the backup vault, in DPM, you will have the ability to push that onto the cloud. Store Simple, have you seen, you guys saw Store Simple yesterday. Anybody seen Store Simple? Yes. Yeah? Again, it's a device, it's a physical device that takes care of hot, warm, cold data. The data becomes, cold blocks are transferred directly to Azure seamlessly over the IP. hot and warm are maintained within this thing. So every product that we ship going forward, on-prem or off-prem, will have the ability to back up, move, enable, and even manage it. So System Center, you can even manage your entire cloud infrastructure. You know, let's say if you set up your extended cloud in using, let's say, VPN, System Center will manage the entire show for you.
So if you're using, let's say, Mobile Monitoring, you're using Storm, you continue to use that for your VMs on Azure.
Yeah.
And Source Simple is a classic example of hybrid storage.
Yeah, hybrid storage. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's something we didn't. Yeah.
We don't know the advantages which one can derive out of implementation of hybrid cloud. But what are the additional challenges which can be there to the IT manager, when once we are managing the hybrid cloud? Additional responsibility area or additional challenges, so that one is aware and one takes the...
Okay, so I'm an application developer. I'm always thinking from an application developer perspective, but from an IT manager's perspective, the challenge is how he's going to think about managing what we do on the PaaS side. See, on the infrastructure side, it's not a big deal. Not different from what he's doing today. Today also he's using VMware. Today also he's using Hyper-V. Today also he's virtualizing stuff and managing, the show. He's using SCOM to System Center to manage dashboards of what servers are up and running. He'll do that in the cloud also. The challenge will be how is he going to manage the PaaS services that people create on the cloud. That's I don't know, something, again, something to learn, I'd say.
See, point I'm coming from is when the things are internal. Any downtime happens for whatever reason, since the things are absolutely in your control, it may take time, but it may not take that much of time because all the things are under your control and you
can manage things, yes.
Here, once I'm using PaaS platform as a service, how quick it is when it comes to response time or identifying where exactly the issue lies, because the downtime or the issue may
That's a good
happen for any
question.
reason. It may not always be the application or may not be the infrastructure layer, it can be some middle layer or interface.
Yeah, that's a very good question, in fact. So let me take a step back and tell you this, right? In the cloud world, in the Azure world, by default, whatever you do, there are 3 copies of the system or a data, right? Those 3 copies are maintained within your own DC. So one of the and then you can also say that I want to do geo redundancy, I want to do zonal redundancy. Basically what you guys know what that means, right? Zonal means within a zone I'll have, so there'll be 6 copies, and otherwise in a geo means any outside of your zone, so outside of, let's say, Singapore and India region, in the US I'll have a copy of my data. So one of the things for an IT manager to consider is where is my redundancy going to be and why, right? I had one point of discussion to make, which is basically on what all services on Azure can you use to enable more hybrid scenarios. One of them is called Traffic Manager, right? Now Traffic Manager is 100% pure play cloud scenario, right? But think about it from a person who's built his on-prem infrastructure such that because he's got customers in Europe, he's gone to a Europe physical data center, deployed his solution there. In I don't know, I can't think of Facebook as an example, right? Proximity, latency, taking care of all that, they would have something in Europe, something in North America, something in our region, and so on and so forth. And they want to move people like that. This is also a decision of the IT manager. Where do I want my deployment to be? He's never before had to worry about where are my users, right? He's only had to worry about where are my servers. How do I manage my servers? Never had to worry about where are my users. Now these things will come into play, right?
What about the security between hybrid and premises?
Okay. Cool. What about security between hybrid and?
Sometimes banking sector, we are transferring data to hybrid also.
Okay, can we go out and talk, because I'm getting nasty looks from there.
Thank you guys. It has been,
Yeah, this is really good. Thank you so much.
we discussed about everything under the earth in the hybrid.